Do you want to go first, Dylan?
Well,
See how I did that?
Yeah. It's a really weird time because I'm like in my room trying to control all the noise. So now is a good time because it's quiet right now. So I'm Dylan. Unlike the other young people that we've heard from today, I live in Northern California. I did originally find the program down in LA with everyone else, but these days I live up in Berkeley. I know on the flyer that went out last week, it said Oakland. So for the record, I live on the border between Oakland and Berkeley. But it's quite humbling to be on one of these rosters with folks that I've only heard recordings of, like hearing Larcene and Earl earlier today. It's almost like people I never thought I would meet, but now I have the opportunity to see them, and I get to see them at home, in my slippers, and I don't have to go out somewhere. So I don't know, I might just do more of these now that I can just wear my sandals wherever I go. But I apologize if you hear my cats in the background. There's only so many things that I can control, and the cats have decided to climb on my desk while I'm talking to you today. It's just something I can't do anything about. So I'm grateful. It's astounding to me that this young people's Young at Heart group has become what it's become. Nick L invited me to come set up chairs in 2008. And I can remember receiving the phone call from him, and he's just like, "Hey, we're going to do this really cool thing. And here's the church. Not sure what you're doing. Come help me set up chairs." I'm just like, "Oh, whatever, I guess. I'm not doing anything else." And the one meeting grew into this following that is nothing that that I don't think anyone really anticipated happening. Like I said, I'm originally from LA. I've had lots of home groups. The last home group that I called my home group was in San Jose. Over the last 5 years, I've probably moved 5 or 6 times, maybe 5 or 6 times over the last 10 years. So I've lived a lot of places. Right now I'm in Berkeley. I was in San Jose before that. And I was in LA before that. And I was in Orange County before that. I've lived other places. I'll talk a little bit about that. But we're talking about concept 4, right? That's what we were dispatched to talk about. We were talking about that a little bit. So I'm going to try and weave the participation component into my share. It's important for me to identify where I started so that I can remember where I am now. I grew up in a house for the first 15 years of my life where my parents didn't drink and they didn't do drugs. And when they had people over, the alcohol came with them to the party, but then the alcohol left when the party was over. There was no dialogue about the drinking or why they didn't drink or should I drink, should I not drink. It wasn't really talked about. So when I found out as a junior in high school that my mother had been self-medicating for most of my life, I had no tools to deal with it. I came in mostly because I wanted answers from my younger sister, who is 7 years my junior. Like most of us, I didn't really care what happened to me. I just wanted the situation to get better. And I found in the rooms of Al-Anon that by taking care of myself, I'm also helping those around me. Early in my time in the program, my father started going back to meetings. I also found out that my parents met in the rooms of AA before I was born. At some point in my early years, they stopped going. My dad has been able to maintain his sobriety since 1985, I believe, is when his last drink was. But for most of my life as a child and as an adult, my mother's been in and out. So I wasn't happy to get here, right? I walked in the door with a resentment and pointing fingers at everyone but myself. And I just wanted the answers and just wanted to leave. And I was a fresh 16 years old when that happened. And I came into an Al-Anon meeting in Woodland Hills, California, that also had an Al-Anon meeting. And I believe they have a preteen and a babysitting meeting too. And I haven't been in that meeting in a very long time physically, but I think there's also an AA meeting that meets at the same time. So it's truly a family environment, and it was unlike anything that I grew up in. My family didn't talk about these really weird isms that we had. Instead, we just kind of kept moving. So that's what I came in with. I came in with that. But the program, and specifically the fourth concept in how Al-Anon works, it says that the participation is about harmony and not about dominance. I grew up in a family where it was very shame and guilt and dominance focused. My mother and my grandmother specifically are some of the smallest people in the family, but they were dominant as hell. They ruled the house, they ruled the world, they ruled the family, and it was kind of forced participation. Um, and I grew into my high school age thinking that if I didn't participate, I was going to be kind of nagged and scolded and guilted into to doing what everyone wanted me to do. So there was no harmony there. If there was harmony, it was harmony in knowing that grandma loved you for that particular week. And it was strange because that didn't work as I grew as an adult. But I came into Alateen at 16, and if anyone has been in Alateen or transitioned out of Alateen or is familiar with sponsorship in Alateen, after I got to about the 6 month mark, I was an old timer. Like, I knew all the readings, I had done all the stuff. I was the senior person in the room, and I'm also very fortunate to have come into the program in LA, where there is an Alateen environment, or at least there was when I was there, and there was Alateen conferences, and Alateens were participants in the Al-Anon family groups in LA. So as the senior member at this point, they said, "Hey, we're going to go do this thing, and you should come." So 17, 18-year-old me would load up a car full of teens, and we would go to these events. And the participation is truly what one made me leave my own Dylan isms behind and be of service. But I also was shown that I can work with adults, right? Like, I can work with adults that aren't going to shake their finger at me and tell me how dare I not do something, or how dare I do something. And I got to work with alcoholics. I think I must have been 18 years old when I was the Alateen chairperson for the San Fernando Valley AA convention that they have every year. And I was in rooms with folks who could be my dad, could be my mom, could be my grandmother. And I was an equal, right? My participation made the group more whole than it was, and my Alateen voice was heard. And they're some of the best relationships I've ever had, was service work with folks who were either in Al-Anon or were alcoholics. It was something that I didn't have at home, right? My relationship with alcoholics at home was loud, or it was violent, or it was unpredictable. I knew that when I could tell an AA at an AA conference, "Hey, it's good to see you," they would say, "Hey, it's good to see you too." And it would stop there. There wasn't like, "Hey, you effer, why did you do this?" Or, "I told you to do this, why didn't you do it?" And Alateen and my early Al-Anon years really formed me as an adult, as I believe it now. At 18, I transitioned out of Alateen into Al-Anon, and I have really been blessed to have this young people's environment, because I don't know where I would have gone otherwise, right? I would have been like a lot of the folks have talked earlier in the weekend. I would have been an 18-year-old kid in a room full of people that look like my grandma. And the young people's group kind of gave me at least a very outlined model of, here's how you participate in life. I found one person who had what I was looking for, as a sponsor. And it was just like, well, that makes sense. Great, you're my sponsor. And again, I was grateful that this gentleman was like, well, part of being an Al-Anon and having a sponsor means you got to work steps. And 18, 19-year-old me was looking for excuses for everything. Um, and it was the beginning of me figuring out who Dylan really was, because I feel like before that I didn't know. So back to concept four is about participation. My sponsor was really big on me just showing up to things, so I did a whole lot of that. I said a whole lot of yes to a whole lot of things. I had no idea what I was saying yes to, but by doing that early in my program, it put me in places that I never would have imagined I would be. um, Through working the early part of my steps, I realized that I needed to leave LA. I needed to get out of my parents' house. I lived at home until I was 20 with active alcoholism. I pulled a geographic and moved up to Santa Cruz, California. For folks out of the country, it's about 6 hours north of LA, not quite San Francisco, a little bit below that. And I found a meeting there full of men who had what I wanted again. And I found a district there that needed a group rep. So I was a group rep. They needed a district secretary. So I was a district secretary. And it was kind of these opportunities showed up, and my sponsor taught me early, like, you just say yes to things, you just go help people. And I had a different perspective because I was participating as a younger member. It truly worked for me because I was working the program, and I knew that the program needed participation. Um, it it's really it's hard. It's hard right now in so uncertain times to wrap my head around what the hell is happening in my life, right? Just like everyone is right now. It's hard for me to create this direct correlation and this clear meaning when there's just so much noise going on, particularly between our ears these days. So I went back to the literature too, and Pastor Recovery talks about we respect each other as we ourselves want to be respected. And as I said before, that's what I found. I found a group of people who loved me just for the way that I was, and I kind of learned through sponsorship and working the steps that I can love people just as they are too. And at a later point in my program, I was working with Al-Teens as an Al-Teen sponsor, and it's it's a constant reminder to me that their voice must be heard. And I feel like for the rest of my time in this program, that I feel like that is my legacy. My legacy is to have young voices heard. I'm almost 30 years old now, and I feel like a very, very old man. Um, I started in the program and I felt like I could never finish school. And a couple weeks ago, I graduated from graduate school, and it's this really weird time of like working the program and being intentional and advocating for what's important, and the fruits of that work is being revealed. I just am stuck at home, and it's being revealed in different ways. Um, the kind of to wrap where I'm at, I'm having a hard time connecting dots, even for myself. I came in because I wanted to find answers for my sister. My younger sister has had her own journey, and she's found the program in different ways than I could. She came into Alateen after I did. Um, she's been in the program a larger portion of her life than I have mine, and she's got her own path. My mom's got her own path. My father's got his own path, um, and it's all of their participation. So it's their higher powers doing for them what I couldn't do for them. I couldn't will their lives to get better, but I could show up for my own life and those of other people in the program, and make my own life better. The fourth concept is participation is the key to harmony. And I made some notes here that it's not Dillanon, right? It's Al-Anon. And I can't show up and be the dominance that I had a hard time with growing up, right? I show up so that I can be inclusive and so that I can listen to people and so that I can continue to grow myself, not so that I can come in here and name the meeting after myself and make it all about me. I'm really happy that everyone's here. It's astounding. I've never seen folks that I knew in the central part of the country and, Santa Cruz and LA. Like, I'm looking at everyone at the same time, and it's just astounding to me. With that, I would like to pass it over to my colleague here.
Yay, Dylan. Hi, I'm Jasmine. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for allowing us YHAs to speak at this awesome conference setting. First of all, I want to apologize if you heard me do like Darth Vader breathing before this throughout Dylan's awesome share. I always forget to breathe. So if I pause awkwardly long, take that as an invitation to also take some deep breaths. How did my participation help me be a part of is the topic, concept 4. I was reflecting on that topic, and participation is the key to harmony from the concepts. And it felt a little daunting, to be honest. I still consider myself relatively new, and applying the concepts in my life and in service is still a new thing. But what struck me is that it felt like a lie. Participation is the key to harmony, because the way I've been affected by the family disease of alcoholism is that participation is not the key to harmony. The key to harmony is control, avoidance, isolation, depending on someone, or deferring all my responsibilities to another person and hoping for the best. And so it's a reminder for me that all these tools that we're getting in program are like medicine to a wound that was created growing up in alcoholism. I'm going to give my husband some credit, because he always says this thing that his program, but it applies to Al-Anon as well. It's like an antibiotic. If you take it as prescribed, it's going to help. And so, like I said, I still feel relatively new, and I always appreciate when long-timers in meetings kind of bring it back to the literature or things in our service manual. And the concepts where they apply, I'm finding out, is that we get recovery through the steps, unity through the traditions, and service through the concepts. And so like I said, my go-to would be passivity and isolation, or deference of responsibility, avoidance of decision-making. And I'm going to fill that in a little bit. So I was born and raised in Germany. If I should do the German Serenity Prayer at some point, let me know. And I grew up in a generation of like post World War II, definitely avoidant, untreated Al-Anons, some alcoholics, in and around, gamblers, rageaholics, etc. And I think what I learned was that my voice didn't really matter, or that women particularly didn't speak up. We deferred all decision-making to the men, who in my family surroundings happened to be modeled after the angry grandpa figure who was the drunk. So all the men that were chosen after that were just often dominant, or they didn't even have to be, because all the women were so subservient that all the power was just handed over by default. And so I think I grew up just being resentful, having so many opinions, but also not learning to actually use my voice. I remember being in school, and whenever I would speak, people would lean in and be like, huh? Because I didn't realize that I was whispering. I was just always whispering, and so no one understood what I was saying. And it wasn't what I was saying that made them frown so much. It was just that they couldn't hear me, and these are just the funky little ways in which alcoholism affects me. So I came into program around 5.5 years ago, and I was that trend of not speaking up and being full of resentment had just like amplified itself through every relationship that I had, whether it was with like people or career or education, any part of my life. How you do one thing is how you do anything, right? And so I came into that Friday Tradition 5 meeting here, and I was just loaded with rage, and I did not feel like I belonged. I enjoyed what I was hearing. I enjoyed that I heard people laugh, and I enjoyed that I could see that people had solutions to the problems that I was facing. And I heard my story, and in particular, my mom's story in the room. And so I knew that I wanted to come back. And speaking of participation, and also just as a callback to the panel earlier on Tradition 5, the Young at Heart crowd was really good at greeting the newcomer, carrying the message to the newcomer. There's just, at this point, we have like the secret language where we just, when they ask like, who is the newcomer, we just eye each other like, you got this person, you got that person, okay, cool. And then in the break or after the meeting, we're just definitely going to that person, inviting him to another meeting, or marking the directory with, what are the cool meetings that we know in the area, and just make sure that that person feels connected and gets an opportunity to participate. So how did participation help me be a part of? So one of the ways that happened is someone from the young people just invited me to fellowship. I said yes. And I got more connected. It took a long time. I still didn't feel like I belonged, but I had a place that I could show up at. That it was a space that I was invited to and I could come to. I would still, I don't know, I feel like this should be a thing that we talk about, but did anybody else have like scream cries in their car? I did. I certainly did. I like after meetings and before meetings, I would just feel so awful. And I would, I would just take up the whole meeting sharing about my pressing problems, not the whole meeting, my time to share. I would always share a pressing problem. I would always just immediately after the meeting go to like 5 different members and just like, blah, 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 like, oh, this is all the stuff that's happening and I need solutions, and tell me what to do. And subtext, tell me how the other person is wrong. And graceful, wonderfully recovered Al-Anons just had that funky smile saying, like, keep coming back. that really calm, like, yeah, that's great, keep coming back, you're in the right place. And it just made me want to freaking explode. Like, no one was validating my victimhood for me. It just wasn't happening. And that was the thing that every other relationship in my life had done for me. And so I showed up to fellowship. I showed up to the other meetings I was invited to. Someone announced the San Fernando Valley AA convention, which was the same month that I had first visited that meeting. And I signed up to be of service because someone said to. And so I showed up there, which was just amazing. I was a newcomer in a lot of the marathon meetings. So I got that book that was signed by 100 members at like 3 consecutive meetings. So all my daily readers are from that one first convention I went to. And so there was some kind of promise that I was going to get something here. Something was here for me to receive. And So jumping ahead a little bit, I am today, for this year, this term, the chair of the YHA convention. I don't even know when we started this thing, but it must have been like 3.5, 4 years ago. We started talking about creating this fellowship thing. And yeah, and it just evolved. We were frankly inspired by the young people in AA, because they had a huge fellowship, and they've had it, I don't know, I'm probably getting this wrong, but like I think they've had it for like 50 years or something, tens of thousands of people going to these conventions. And we were like, where is this thing? Where is it in Al-Anon? And we followed all the proper steps and learned that the way for us to create that fellowship was to create a convention committee and to hold an annual convention. So coming back to participation is the key to harmony, I still think there's a little bit of a lie in there, because when I first started in doing service beyond the group level, there is no harmony. I was getting into conflict everywhere, and I still do. But the beauty of it is that all these situations where conflict arises are an opportunity to then work my steps, work the traditions, work the concepts, and then get some recovery out of that, and ultimately harmony. But it's a little bit of a bait thing, be of service, and that's the key to harmony. It is, but it is also an invitation to face conflict and face all those character defects. Like, one thing that Al-Anon helped me with is, before program, I was constantly sleeping. I was just, I would sleep in, I would wake up to eat something, then I'd take another nap, be depressed about something, and then go back to sleep. That was just kind of the daily grind. And I was convinced that it was just because the alcoholic in my life was draining me, and I'm depressed. And so I'm just going to avoid life like that. And to an extent, there was something to that. However, what I learned is I needed to go to the doctor. Something wasn't right with me, sleeping through every day. There was something that wasn't right. And I learned that I have narcolepsy. And so I got to actually treat that and get medication. That's an outside issue. However, what I mean to say is that I actually, because program taught me self-care and to participate in my own recovery and to not depend on other people to do what I can do for myself. I'm not depending on someone else to make me feel good, make me feel more awake. I get to do that. I get to take the proper action in my life. And so today I can show up to this and not be taking a nap throughout this meeting. Yes. And I wonder what else there's to say about this. Participation. Yeah, I think I just want to, if there's also newer or young at heart members in here, just want to invite you to reach out. Talking to other members who were going through the same or had gone through the same and were just like one step ahead of me in Al-Anon was really helpful. And that experience of feeling like we don't belong is just so universal. And also, what I understand from the concept 4 is it's really about giving up control, in a sense, that we are not the ultimate authority when it comes to service, but that we divide and delegate responsibilities in the fellowship and in different service committees, and everyone gets to participate. But ultimately, it is up to us to step up to the plate to participate. There's only so many invitations that you will get. Or the invitation is standing at all times. So I think for me, part of working that concept is in recognizing the invitation and not assuming that my voice is not important and stepping up to the plate. That's my share. Thanks. What do we do now?
I don't know. I think that's why she unmuted me.
I think at the last meeting, we can't hear you, Yvonne, in case you're talking.
whatever you would like to do. I'm sorry, I didn't know I had my mute on. Whatever you guys want to do, if there's anybody who wants to chat, stick your electronic hand in the air, or you can always chat me. There's Enid.